In this lab, we're going to write some code that will convert a number from one number system, such as decimal, over to another number system, such as hexadecimal, binary, and octal. I don't know if you can tell, but these are text boxes right here, and this is going to be our input, and then these three right here are going to be our output, so that when we click this button on our application, it should perform that conversion for us. This is going to be written in HTML and JavaScript, and this is an application that can run in a small window on a computer or on a smartphone. All right, so let's get started. So it says go over to engineering.sfasu.edu/mobile and create an account and label this application that you're going to make number conversion. I'm going to go ahead and copy that into memory here. So going over to this website, engineering.sfasu.edu, I'm going to put the /mobile on there. And what I'm going to do is enter my email address right here, preferably my campus email address. And if I needed to create a new account, I would click on this radio button and create the new account. But I already have one, so I'm just going to log in using that existing account on this mobile web app developer application. So this is a preview of the application over here, and these are some applications that you can write. So one of the first things it says here to do is to create a new application called number conversion. So I'm going to do that like so and say create app. Now to edit that app, what I want to do is go over here and click on the edit button for number conversion. This is another test application I was working on. But I'm going to edit this number conversion, and I can begin writing code over here and then see my application in this smartphone simulation window over here. All right, so to begin with, every application needs tags in it. Every website has tags, an opening and closing tag. And every website should have HTML as the opening tag, and then we can put /HTML as the closing tag. So you see that throughout any kind of web application as an opening and closing. For example, here's another thing that you often, well, almost always need on a website as well, or a web application, is what are called the head tags or header tags. And these are what can contain a title. So let me put a title tag in there, like so. And there's the title of my application, like this. Now what this part right here does is that when I save this and run this application in its own window, it will put this name right here on that tab right there, or at the top of my browser. So that's the purpose of that right there. Another thing that you'll see in the header tag, or in between those two tags, is code. This is going to be JavaScript. So what you want to do is open a script tag, and this is where we're going to put JavaScript in between these two script tags here, the opening and closing tag, like so. And then down here below the header tag, we'll come back up here and write code later, by the way. Below the header tag, you want to have the content of your site. And this is basically going to be the body open and close tag, like that. This is going to be the content. It's going to be the table that we saw right over here, this table. We need to build that out. So we need to have it say number conversions, in the top row of the table, and have all these things in there. All right, so going back over to the web application here, I'm going to type in table, and that's the opening tag, and then table for the closing tag. Now if I save this right now, I really don't have much of an application. It's pretty much blank because I really haven't put anything in the table. But why don't we do this? Let's put a table row, tr, and make a table heading and call that number conversions. And we're going to close the table heading and then close the table row. If I hit save now you'll see that I have this right here. But it doesn't have the border and the gray background. So let's try to add that. What we can do is go up here after the E in table and write border equals 1. And then what we can do over here is maybe say BG color, maybe that'll work. Let's try it out. Equals gray. Let's see if that'll work. If we hit save, and it looks like it's a little too gray. So what we might do is say, I don't know, maybe light gray works. I haven't tried that in a while. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now what we want to do is put another row in the table right here. Let's see where we are at here. There it is right there. We need to have one cell that says decimal and the other cell that has a text box in it. So I'm going to come back over here, start my next table row, tr, and then td. So this is going to be table data, not a table heading, so that's why I'm using TD instead. And the first thing is going to be decimal. That's going to be the label that is there. I can spell that right. Then I'm going to close close the table data, the data cell right there, and start me a new one that's going to have a control in it. It's going to have a text box in there. It's going to have a text box. I don't know if you can tell the border around that, but there's a text box. And also we're going to need to close the table row right there. So we're closing that whole row. Now I need to put my control right in there. That's what it's called, a text box control. And it's called an input, I-N-P-U-T. And then the ID, when we say type, type equals text because it's a text box. The ID, now they kind of give a hint down here on what we should call that control. And it says it's going to be a text box control, and they use DEC for that right there. You'll see what we're talking about as we move along. I'm just going to give this an ID, or an identification of TXT, and then capital DEC, and then close that off. If it's saved right now, you'll notice I have the label right here, and then there's a text box that I can type into. Now eventually I want to put 255 in there. Maybe by default what I can do is, so that I don't have to type 255 during the testing process, I can come over here and say value equals 255. 255, there we go. Hit save and it's always there. And one thing you'll notice is that this doesn't really stretch across the whole thing, but I would really like it to. So I'm going to go up here to my table header, and I'm going to say COLSPAN equals 2. That means column span equals 2. Hit save, and that expands across the whole thing. You can even do some fancier things, like, these are not really required, but you can say, I don't know, maybe align, maybe that's it, align equals center. And that might center up the table on there a little bit, getting closer to what it looks like over here. Now what we need to do is have another text box right below that, but what we can do is just copy this line right here and paste it like that. And this is going to be hexadecimal. And what we also have below that, let's see if I can remember, is binary and then octal as well. All right, so I'm going to do this, copy and paste for binary and octal. All right, so here we're going to put binary right there and octal right there. But I need to change the name of these controls because this is where it collects data and then pushes data too. This is, DEC, which stood for decimal, so we need to put maybe HEX for that. And it is case sensitive, so we're careful to put capital, say, BIN here and capital OCT for that right there. Now we don't want to put values in these other ones. If I save it right now, it's putting 255 and everything, so that's not really the correct conversion, so we'll just delete those initial values right there. They were really only used for testing purposes. All right, so the last thing we need is a button down at the bottom that performs the calculation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this one more time, or maybe I'll just go ahead and write it from scratch. The last row is going to have basically a cell with nothing in it, first of all. As you can see right here, this has nothing in it, but then I have a button right here. So then I'm going to make another table data cell that has an input button. So I'm going to say input type equals button. And the value of this button is going to be convert. I think that was the label on it. And then close the table data cell and then close the row. And then if it's save, you can see that I have a button right here. But it doesn't really do anything. I really need to have it do some kind of action. So what I'm going to do is go grab some code that will actually do that for me. So I can go over here to the homework handout that I've downloaded from the website, or I can just copy and paste it, or type it in. I can put it right up here. Now I copied the script, okay, so the script tags were already there like this. I can paste it just like that, and what it's going to do here is that it's going to run this convert routine. Well, when is it going to do it? It's a function right now, but I really have no way of calling this just yet. But what I'm going to do is go down here to this button, and I'm going to say, whenever I click this button, I want it to run this subroutine convert. The way you do it is you say on click equals convert, open open parentheses, close parentheses, excuse me, and let's put the correct spelling of the word convert too. All right, so there it is right there. If we hit save, let's see what happens. It should do all three of these lines anytime I press this button. And it says FF, so that's correct. That's the hexadecimal equivalent of 255. Now the rest of this, I'm going to leave it up to you to complete. But you can see that what we're going to need to do, if you look at what this does here, first of all, is it creates a variable called decimal, and it reads it in from the control called des, and that's this right here. Oh, I'm sorry, that text box right there. So it says, look on the document somewhere, get an element by its ID, and it's going to be the decimal, and then get the value of it and put it right here. So right now it's saying create a variable decimal, and it stores 255 in there. Now this is a text value when it's read right here, so we need to convert it over to a number. So in JavaScript, and that's what this is right here, you can use parse int to take that decimal text and convert it into a decimal number. Then what I've done is I said, now that I've gotten a value from one cell, or one text box rather, I'm going to put it in another text box, but I'm going to put it in hexadecimal. So now I'm assigning whatever over here into that text box right here, hex. And the way that I convert that number from decimal, which is right here, over to hexadecimal is I say toString 16, and then I give it some uppercase also because I like to have capital F's there for that. So the 16 is because it's base 16. And I bet you can see how it's going to go from here forward. You need 2 more lines of code to finish this up. What you'll do is copy and paste these last 2 lines, and instead of hex and 16, you'll have bin and 2. So you have bin and 2, and then for the octal, you'll have oct and 8. And then when you hit the convert button, it should convert that through. After you have saved the application with all that completed, you can move on to the next project. You do not need to print out anything or to fill out any part of this handout right here. You can simply save it and you've submitted your project. All right, have fun.